In this video, I'll be going over how I did the interior of this 6 foot wide, 2 feet deep, 4 foot high vivarium. It will include how I did the background, made trees out of multiple pieces of cork bark, bendable vines that hold their position, interior fans, fogger, exterior nest box, and more. I'll add the materials I used in the description below. I first started out by measuring and cutting a piece of XPS board, then roughing up the back so silicone has something to bond to a little bit better, then used a wire foam cutter to trim out the sides towards the front of the glass. Wipe down the enclosure with rubbing alcohol and applied a generous amount of silicone to the XPS board. Dropped the insulation board into place and held it down with some weight overnight. Started sculpting and carving down the background using a wire brush drill bit. This stuff makes a mess, so it's best to do it outside if possible. Vacuumed up all the debris from the bottom of the enclosure and the walls. Applied great stuff spray foam to all the seams. A little bit of water helps it cure quicker. Then just peeled off the excess. Used a heat gun to tighten the XPS board. This helps for dry lock or silicone to bond to better. Taped off the top and the bottom of the enclosure. Mixed in Quickcrete to my dry lock and started the long process of adding 8 different coats. The last coat will be the darkest color, so it remains in the crevices when I go ahead and dry brush, bringing out some detail. Also made a water bowl using XPS board. Dry brushing is pretty standard, like I've explained in past videos, but pretty much I start with my darkest tone and end with my lightest tone. This helps with the fake rock appearance and brings texture to life. Now adding my lightest tone. Now that I have everything all dry locked in, it gives me a starting point to build off of. To begin, I had a whole bunch of cork bark to choose from, so I started arranging them to fit my vision. Once I liked the direction it was going, I started spray foaming them all together. I'm blocking off the bottom here with great stuff because this particular piece is also going to serve as a hide. Using spray foam to connect it all together. We'll go ahead and camouflage the seam a little bit later. Filled in some of the centers where I didn't want the animal to go and also strengthen the structure. Applied a little bit of hot glue to tack it into place. Then just applied spray foam to secure it into place. In total, I used 6 cork bark tubes. Started pulling off the excess spray foam. Then did a base layer of white dry lock. Then using the same colors of dry lock that I used on the background. Smashed up some cork bark. Applied silicone over the dry lock and added some pieces of cork bark. Took completely dried cocoa fiber and pressed it into the wet silicone. Let it dry for 24 hours, then vacuumed off what wasn't needed. This method makes everything look seamless. Then just tied in the rest of the bark into the background using dry lock. Here's the 6 different pieces. Added in some ledges using great stuff spray foam, carved it out, and did the same dry lock process as before. Working on the right side of the enclosure, things didn't go as planned, so I went ahead and ripped it out. played around with a few different ideas until I found one that I liked, and then started the same process as I did on the left side. Checking the strength, and it was solid. Started working on the cooler hide, took a permanent marker and traced it out, used a Dremel tool to cut through the dry lock, and a steak knife to cut through the XPS board, pulling it off with the crowbar. Placed the hide into the cutout and started spray foaming it in. Made a third entrance hole and spray foamed around it to give it a little bit more character. Then blended it in with dry lock. Started pulling the tape to have a nice, clean line. Used a level to see which way the water would flow, so I knew where to put a drain for my water overflow. Marked a hole to drill for my bulkhead and popped it in. Added a ball shutoff valve for draining the vivarium for easy maintenance. Used Lexol adhesive to attach the brick to the center tree stump. Then used spray foam for added support. Gave the background a good 20-minute shower. Went ahead and dialed in where I wanted my basking lights to target and cut out the holes. Attached 1/8" chicken wire using super glue and smoothing it out with a spoon. And then screwed them down from the top. Installed an Arcadia T5 for the reptile and Jungle Dawn for the plants. I kept the cutouts for plugs if ever needed. Putting on my DP projector for nighttime heat. I can move the lights around for different heat gradients. Installed my 1/2" bulkheads for the fogger. Spray painted some 1/2" PVC pipe that attaches to the bulkheads, that attaches to the hose that connects to the fogger. Now to make some jungle vines. I found this hose that's textured so silicone will stick to it with ease. I measured out to the length that I wanted and made 3 of them. Took 9-gauge aluminum wire and doubled the length of the hose. Folded the wire in half so I can double it up. Crimped down the loop so it'd fit in the hose. Clamped down the hose so it'd be easier to push the wire through. Applied a generous amount of silicone. Then spread it all over the hose. Pressed in dry cocoa fiber all over the silicone. Hung them to cure and air out outside for a few days. Shook off any loose cocoa fiber and sprayed them down with the hose. Took 2 of them and twisted them together. Then took a 3rd and wrapped it around the other 2. Cleaned up the ends with silicone and cocoa fiber. Made some other vines using rope, silicone, and cocoa fiber. Placed them into the vivarium. They hold their shape well in whatever direction you bend them in. I couldn't get my drill in here straight to make a hole to hang the vines on a hook, so I used a magnet to target the area that I wanted to drill a hole. Installed a hook with a washer for extra support with a lock nut on top. Then hung them with the looped 9-gauge wire coming out of the hose. If you've liked this video so far, do me the favor, like and subscribe. I have a whole room to fill with custom builds. Drilled some holes to mount the mistking nozzles. Made some internal fans using 40mm fans and a mistking nozzle. This way I can point the airflow in whatever direction I desire. Check out the link above to see how they were built. Drilled 1.5-inch holes for some vents. Silicone the vent. Used fine mosquito netting, put it behind the vent and pushed it into the hole. Use the razor and cut it off. I also have 1.5-inch plugs so I can cover the vent if ever needed. If you want to see how the framework of this PVC enclosure was built, check out the link above. It also has a few other extra components that are not in this video. Also, this exterior nest box / hide box is explained in further detail. But in short, it's hooked up to a heat pad that is regulated with a thermostat. The lid is locked down with the PVC on this side and zip ties on the other side. To access the inside, I just move the wood block that acts as a lock on the back side. Slide the tote back and towards myself to be able to open it up. The back zip ties also act as a hinge. Snap the lid back into place and slide it back onto the PVC pipe. I did add climbing surface in the PVC pipe so the reptile can climb in and out. Put the lock back into place, made sure it was secure and good to go. I also have an end cap to use if needed. This is the entrance to the nest box and or hide. Added weed barrier over the bulkhead for the water overflow. Dumped some play balls into a tub to get rid of all the dust and went ahead and washed them all off. Then let them soak for a few hours. Then poured them into the vivarium as a drainage layer, spreading them out to an even depth of about 1.5 to 2 inches. Started laying down weed barrier to separate the substrate from the drainage layer. Put in the center stump. I used a lot of different materials for my substrate. I kind of made 2 different substrate layers. For the first layer, I used the following. Then spread it out evenly. Then for a top coat, I bought everything in bulk and made my own ABG mix. Went to the local hardware store to get my plants. Got them all down to the bare root and started filling up the vivarium with some greenery. I did the canopies first. For the ground, I started with the tallest plants in the back, working myself forward. Then gave everything a good spray down. Added a little bit of long fiber sphagnum moss, different types of leaf litter. This will all break down over time, helping nutrients for the plants and food for the microfauna. Added in a few different seed pods, nut pods, and botanicals, along with the water dish. Installed the custom cut tempered glass. A lock so the reptile doesn't break out. A little bit of weather stripping along the glass edge. Stuck on some handles for the sliding glass doors. Tested out the mistking system. Added some powder blue and powder orange isopods, along with some dairy cow isopods. Also added 2 different types of springtails to complete the cleanup crew. Ordered some pretty gnarly feeding dishes. Installed them right into the cork bark. The simplicity of doing water changes and food changes with these is a must-have. And here it is, 6 foot wide, 2 feet deep, 4 foot high, blue tree monitor, vivarium. Like and subscribe, and comment what you'd like to see me build next.